The Russian delegation has claimed that the high-stakes meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Trump was very productive. This despite no major breakthrough being announced in Alaska. Now, after the meeting, Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, he stated that the presidents of Russia and United States, they decided not to take questions because they made comprehensive remarks at the final press conference. Describing the conversation as very positive, he said that it indicated a constructive tone that could pave the way for exploring peace settlement options together. Reacting to the discussions held with the US side, Russia's Defense Minister Andrei Belousov said that the mood was great, while Finance Minister Anton Silunov took a more cautious approach, saying, "You'll know everything later." Now, Kirill Dmitriev, Putin's special envoy, highlighted that both parties discussed numerous issues, reaching agreements on several key points while others remain under consideration. He expressed optimism about continuing to build US-Russia relations despite potential resistance and strengthening ties between the two countries.
US-Russia summit in Alaska has definitely been productive. US side has received Russian side very well. There were lots of issues that we discussed and many we agreed. Some of them are to be agreed. And definitely it's very important that President Trump outlined a significant economic potential of cooperation between US and Russia. And will continue building US-Russia relations going forward, despite lots of the resistance to this, but will continue strengthening US-Russia ties.
Russia's ambassador to US, Alexander Darshiev, described the atmosphere during the talks as generally positive. He, however, noted that no major breakthroughs have been achieved yet, stressing that both sides are working towards it.
The atmosphere was generally positive, and we will hear the specific results firsthand. But there have been no major breakthroughs, and it seems unlikely that there will be any. But we are trying, especially in the visa area. However, you can see for yourselves that changes are happening very, very slowly. There are two other major issues: the return of 6 Russian diplomatic properties that have been de facto confiscated, without which it will be difficult to resolve other issues, and secondly, our initiative, which we believe would contribute to real normalization, the restoration of direct flight connection between our countries.
All right, to discuss this further, I'm now being joined by Dr. Glenn Diesson, Professor of International Relations at the University of Southeastern Norway and an editor at the Russia in Global Affairs journal. Glenn, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. Big statements. It was a big meeting. The summit, highly anticipated, and of course, it did deliver in terms of the optics. A lot of handshakes, a lot of smiles, most of them also coming from the Russian president. And as far as the statements are concerned, let's get right into it. The few sticking points which they've not, the significant ones, which they've not really achieved some kind of common ground on, which ones do you feel those are? Because that's something Trump also mentioned, and Putin's special envoy also mentioned the same, that there are one or two main ones which they've not agreed upon yet. What must they be?
Well, I have no way of knowing, but it's probably either related to the European security architecture, that is the future of Ukraine's neutrality, NATO expansionism, again, or is this territories? But it has to be said that this will probably be a very long process because this conflict is not simply about territory. It's not simply about all about Ukraine either. So I think what we're seeing is this conflict, which has been going on now for 35 years, which is that in the 90s, the agreements for pan-European security architecture, they were cancelled in favor of a hegemonic peace, so pursued through NATO expansion. And this ended up creating a Europe where the largest country in Europe should not have a seat at the table or even have its security concerns taken seriously. So this has been building up for a lot of time, and this manifested itself in this war, and the failure to address the war or the root cause of the war resulted now in 3 years of no diplomacy, territorial disputes now. So when the Russians say they have to address the root causes, they actually mean we have to walk back for these past 35 years and actually deal with how we ended up in this conflict here, because what has played out in Ukraine could also play out in places like Moldova or Georgia, given that we do not have European security architecture. We have an expansionist military alliance, which doesn't, which the Russians now have said will not work. So there's a lot of things that has to be addressed, but I'm guessing the wider problem which has to be resolved is the issue of European security. The territorial issue, I think, would be secondary.
Dr. Diesson, when it comes to what we've seen in the hours gone by, would you consider it a win-win for both Trump and Putin? Trump gets the endorsement of one of the statements that he's been making time and again, that had he been president, this war would have never started. And then you have the man himself, Putin, standing in Alaska saying, yes, that is true, pretty much putting the blame on the Biden administration. And on the other side, for Putin to get that kind of treatment, have the first say in terms of the commentary after, or the remarks made after that meeting, and to get that kind of reception from the US president himself, is it a win-win for both? And if that is the case, who is the loser here?
Well, I think it's not just a win for Putin and Trump. It could be a win for both the United States and Russia. But again, I don't think this is the whole point of creating a proper security architecture. This is an inclusive, proper security architecture built on the principle of indivisible security, that both sides can benefit, not that one wins and one lose. And I think this is also why they focused a lot on bilateral issues. So trade, working out how to do in the Arctic, arms control, all of these are issues which doesn't have to be a loser. But of course, this is also a massive win for the world. I think that we've had until Trump came along, those 3 years of no diplomacy between NATO and Russia. And this is always good when world leaders speak, especially the leader of the two largest nuclear powers in the world. So I think everyone's a winner in that sense. I think the main problem is for the Europeans. They're not really, they don't really have a place in this new world, because keep in mind that a lot of what's being discussed is essentially the shift towards from unipolarity to multipolarity. I think this is what triggered the Ukraine war. And in this world, the Americans would like to have better relations with the Russians and not be hostage to the tensions in Europe, which is probably why they held this in Alaska as well, on their own borders. But I think the problem for the Europeans is they have no place in this new world. In the unipolar world, they were the junior partner of the United States. Once there's a peace deal or settlement in Ukraine, the Americans will try to pull out of Ukraine. They will focus less on Europe, and there's no place for Europe in the world anymore. They've begun to alienate a lot of other countries. So I think, Zelensky and the Europeans are not happy, but I think this is good for America, Trump, and also world peace.
We're definitely a far cry away from the chatter around World War III and nuclear doctrines being changed and nuclear drills carrying out, which were making headlines less than a year ago. It's definitely a far, far distance that we've traveled since then. In that sense, definitely it seems to be a win. And as far as Europe is concerned, there was a statement from Putin mentioning that, they need to stay clear of backdoor meetings hereafter. That's what Russia expects. And as far as Trump is concerned, he's never minced his words regarding what he feels about Europe in the past. But going forward, definitely for Putin and for Trump, there seem to have been a lot of handshakes, only seems to be getting stronger from here. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us here. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.